Hello, everyone, and welcome to Neutral Game, the newbie-friendly fighting game podcast. I'm your host, Midro Kovacevic, aka Real Soviet Bear, and with me is my co-host, Six.
Hello.
And we have a special guest today, Kayin.
Hello.
So Kayin, you want to just tell us a bit about yourself so the guests know, why you're here?
I am the creator of I Want to Be the Guy, developer of the game Brave Earth Prologue, which has been coming out for years now. But I think something not a lot of people put a lot of thought into is there was a lot of Guilty Gear music in I Want to Be the Guy. And that wasn't just because I just messed around with I Want to Be the Guy with Guilty Gear a little bit. I was a pretty serious Guilty Gear player for a long ass time, and I've gotten back on the bandwagon thanks to COVID.
It was also some very choice music, like it was a Suka, which is the more cultured choice for
yes.
music.
Not the greatest game, but great soundtrack.
They bundled up the game with the soundtrack, so that was really good of them.
Yes.
But yeah, today's topic is how to lose, or how to deal with losing in fighting games, and that's been kind of on my mind lately, considering I've been trying a bunch of new fighting games during COVID, and I have the unusual quality of getting really pissy when I'm losing until I get to terms with the game. So I figured, maybe folks in general deal with this, especially when playing online. Figured we talk about it, and aside from Kayin being into fighting games, I figure you are familiar with people getting frustrated considering, I want to be the guy
yes.
and what it spawned.
Well, and then also, throughout COVID, I've been running kind of like a regionalist community for Guilty Gear that attracted a lot of beginner players. So I ended up running events for them. And after every tournament or every Sunday, we ran a fight night card, which is just basically like singles matches, not like a tournament, but just like show matches. After every one of these events, there is my DMs for the next night and a half of people lamenting their feelings about how badly they did to me, and then I have to give them the dad talk. About losing.
It's okay, son.
So
you did your best and we're proud of you.
Yeah, it's either that or pre-batch talk where people are like, oh, I'm not actually really good at this, people apologizing in advance for a potentially bad match, and it's like, no man, just play, it's fine.
Yeah.
So my way of coping with that is I started going before COVID shut everything down. Hopefully I get to go back soon. I went to Wednesday night fights a bunch, and it was great that I sucked because it just meant I inflated the pot for free.
Oh, you were a pot monster.
I was a pot monster. I show up and get O2'd and high five everyone and leave.
Nice.
Honestly, the backbone of the community.
I think I am going to serve us well on this because I learned to be a very graceful loser because I'm really bad. And so, you just stick with it. I mean, you can ask Miadrog. There are lots of clips on the on Miadrog's Twitch channel of us playing fighting games and me getting owned and just laughing about it. So, yeah,
it's sometimes almost disappointing or for me when I go oh, I want to run back after our officially last match because I happen to lose, but you never asked for a run back, and I'm like why? You have to ask for one? I thought people always ask for that.
I mean, I'll ask for a run back if I feel like I have a shot, but listen, sometimes I just get bodied, and that's life.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the main point of fighting games is usually, let's just assume that most of them are 1v1 because I don't think we're going to talk about Power Stone or Free for All Smash, but there's got to be a winner and a loser. That's kind of just the nature of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
I think even most fighting games just don't end in a draw. If it's a draw, they just let you keep playing. I think maybe old school Mortal Kombat would soft reboot if you had a draw 3 times in a row or something. Yeah, I don't know. How did you guys start off when you played fighting games? Like how did you handle, needing to win versus needing to lose, we're just having to lose?
I never had to confront it as harshly as a lot of other people, because most of my initial losing, because there's always a period where you're going to lose a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was learning with friends who weren't super serious. And this would be like early 2000s Guilty Gear, so it's not a very big scene. So when I started going to like local tournaments, just because the level of play was so much less in comparison to, say, like Street Fighter, in the region I'm in, like, there's lots of great, like, at the time, Street Fighter 3 players that lived in my area. Like, I live in New York, so, yeah, Chinatown Fair and everything like that. But not a lot of Guilty Gear, so I was already relatively good and was overachieving when I came in, but that led to the problem of being really afraid of my performance and trying to keep that up. When you have that expectation, like, oh, I'm good at this game.
Sure.
It wasn't until it was net play. It was net play for the for the PC version of Guilty Gear Reload. It was a fan net play hack that actually worked very well and had like public lobbies, like a net play hack with public lobbies, so you could just match up easily with random people. And that was a huge gut check, because now I'm playing people from all over the place, and the connections are horrible and all that, but, like, at that level, it was still just, like, this realization, like, I'm not very good, even if I can, like, beat most of the people at my local tournament, because I will never beat, well, at the time, in my mind, the people, like, a few steps above me. Like, the distance they were so huge, unless I start rethinking how I play, and just being okay with, just accepting the fact that, like, I can't be comfortable with the idea of being good.
Man, that net play patch that you mentioned just takes me back, because I remember that, and I remember how it didn't work for the entirety of Serbia, because 99% of Serbian people didn't have static IP, and if you had a dynamic IP, because I for some reason just didn't work. Like if you had everybody's ISPs just gave them dynamic IP, so I couldn't play with my friends within my country because the patch would just break. And
oh no!
yeah, like that was like I was so excited when I found it that it just didn't work, and I think at some point ISP started giving static IPs and it started working.
Huh.
It's probably one of the greatest fan hacks in terms of UI I've ever seen for multiplayer in a game.
Yeah,
it's literally just a menu in the game. It looks like the rest of the user interface. It was incredible.
Wow.
Well, it's a great way to just come to terms with, like, oh, I'm like, I'm overvaluing my skill and playing in a way where, like, I'm playing because I'm afraid to lose. And once I got used to, like, losing brutally more often, because it's easy to lose to somebody, like, oh, this person's like one of the best players in the United States. Like, oh, that doesn't feel bad to lose to them. But when you start getting beat up by people like, who are you? Like, that hit my pride back then. So, but at the same time, doing that over and over again, I slowly got numb to it, and it's helped now that I've been streaming, because I'd say I'm reasonably good, but, like, if you watch my streams, like, it's feast or famine. Like, either I'm playing people I can handle, or I'm playing great players and I'm not in their league. Like, and it is painfully obvious, and everybody gets to watch it on a weekly basis.
Sure.
What about you, Six? How did you start off with your fighting game career?
So, I mean, my fighting game career didn't start for actually quite a long time, till college, I would say. I mean, I would play, Tekken Tag Tournament at a friend's house and just, spam Light Punch or whatever, right? I mean, not Light Punch, Right Punch or whatever, because Tekken's what it is. But I didn't know how to do a Hadoken until Super Street Fighter 4. I was a gamer on a budget, and I was like, man, this game's launching at $30. I can't afford not to get into this. And so I picked up Super Street Fighter 4, and I just went very deep. And so I started at the bottom because, I mean, I was learning, very basic shit. and I was doing nothing but net play. And when you are a completely new to the genre, pretty much playing net play on Street Fighter 4, there is no room for pride. You're losing to flowchart Kens. I lost once to a Fei Long who just did jump light punch, like not even anti-air, or it was a purely an air-to-air one. So if you just stood still, he would not hit you. I still lost to that. I just had humiliating loss after loss. And it just kind of it didn't beat the pride out of me, but it changed the type of pride I have, right? Where I'm happy when I do something that I think is cool, and my opponent is kind of irrelevant to that.
Yes.
And that philosophy has served me well going forward. It has made me, I don't think I am an especially salty fighting game player. I am used to getting my ass kicked. As long as I can either learn something or have some fun, it's fine.
Yeah. On my end, I kind of was incubated with single-player content because, not too many people played multiplayer. Like, my brother played Mortal Kombat 3, and maybe sometimes Sam Show 2 on the Mega Drive, but it wasn't, anything, super high tier beyond, elementary school level, rivalries. But I play a lot of Guilty Gear on my PC, solo, from Guilty Gear X to, Reload. And I was super confident, oh yeah, I can beat the CPU on Maniac. I'm great at this game. And then when I first played actual people, it was two Guilty Gear players who basically lived in this same small town, and they played with each other constantly. So they constantly improved off of each other. Mm-hmm. And when I played against them, that was super massive wake up call of, oh, actually, I'm horseshit at this game. So kind of started learning there to improve a bit more. But I don't think it was until I bought a PS3 and could actually play BlazBlue Online that I understood properly how to play fighting games, because I just didn't have the opportunities. I think it's Kayin made a good point that it's very different playing locally versus playing online with people who are just so much better than you and just understand the game on a whole different level.
I mean, there's nothing to cut the sting online. In person, it's you can laugh about it, or you can be like, oh man, look at them, they're so good, I never stood a chance, or whatever. You can rationalize it or dismiss it, but online, all there is the results, and there's nothing to cut the sting on your pride, I think.
Yeah. I think the other thing in person versus online is in person, oh, okay, there's those two people who are way better than me. That's good for them. I like them. Good for them. Then you play online, and then you realize there's so many people like this. It's not those two people who are better than me. It's I can just run into a random Ken or whatever who's going to body me. Yeah, you have to, well, I guess you don't have to. You can just be salty and mad all the time. But, a part of the life lesson of fighting games is definitely learning just to, you gotta learn some humility, or you gotta just win.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say definitely a big barrier is just getting rid of the excuses of, oh, I lost because of lag, I lost because the game is cheap, or this guy is just spamming something. You kind of have to reach a point where you tell yourself, oh, these are the rules of the game, this is how it works, and it's the same for them as well, so really it's mostly on me. Or you just have to accept if it's, I don't know, lagged, it's just okay, this match doesn't count because I don't play under these conditions, so I shouldn't even be angry about it.
And that's one of those things that I think, there are people who will think that they're I understand, I'm totally set up for the experience of fighting games because I play other competitive games, right? I play MOBAs, I play shooters, whatever. But in those games, it's a team game, and you can always, and you will see people in the community who only ever do this, who always have the excuse of well, my team fucked up, I did a great job.
Yes.
Fighting games, you don't get to do that. There's no one else there. It's just you.
Well, people still do it. That's the entire economy of the Scrub Quotes tweet profile. People still blaming, I'm blaming you because I lost. It's yeah, because I beat you. Of course I'm to blame that you lost.
Yeah, but I mean that is just people who are deranged.
Oh, it gets pretty pretty bad sometimes.
You know, there are people who can make excuses under any circumstance, but unlike other games, fighting games don't give you much logical room for them. If you're willing to go outside of logic, you'll still be okay. But
Yeah. I think one thing I definitely learned to kind of fuel my like salt is just basically it's not healthy, but I do get more upset myself than everything else because at the end of the day I just go, well, I lost because I lost. It's my fault, and I'm upset at myself, but I'm not like upset at others. Although long term, that's also not healthy.
mm-hmm.
I think to some extent, a little bit of that type of salt, the self-sodium, I think that can be good as long as it's not, like, crushing. It's like, the most important thing I think is just, like, not blaming your opponent.
Yeah,
I think so.
Because a lot of times that, like, disappointment in yourself, that can be motivating. So as long as you don't let it give you so much anxiety that's, like, crushing.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I don't know, a great quote I heard recently was someone saying, like, it's hard to teach fighting games because the best fighting game lessons are life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to, like, process your negative emotions into something positive is, I think, just a strong life lesson.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. And there's definitely, like, you're only gonna get so far with, like, learning technical tricks and stuff, but also, I mean, I do think in a way I am slightly held back by how detached I get sometimes, right? I could use a little more salt in my life. I could stand to take things more personally and take them to the training room. Instead, I'm just like, I lost. Okay.
Yeah. And that's honestly fine too. Like, it depends on what your goal is. Like, if your goal is to have fun, like, that's perfectly great. If your goal is to improve and have fun, which is kind of more where I'm at. That's, you gotta be a little disappointed or else there isn't the motivation to do the hard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, spite is spite is a very strong motivator.
There is a lot of kids on my server who are motivated by spite.
Miadrog here is very motivated by spite as well. Just generally
speaking.
Yeah,
that's just generally, not just fighting games. But, it's gotten me far. I don't think it's super healthy, has some drawbacks, but, it works for shonen anime, so I guess it didn't work for me.
There you go.
I think another thing I see sometimes people struggle with is that they kind of put matches, like they put super high stakes on matches that really aren't super high stake. Like, everybody feels like, I have to win now for, whatever reason. Sometimes it's the game encouraging it. Sometimes it's like, oh, you're going to drop in rank. If you don't win now, you're going to lose this very important thing. And, people, obviously will get more upset if they lose and get more nervous about the match.
Mm-hmm.
And, same thing if you're, streaming, or maybe if you're just, like, playing with a new person. Like, you have a real-life group and somebody new shows up and they're really good, and you might be like, oh, well, I'm the one who's usually really good at this group. I had to prove myself. And I feel that also is a big problem. Like also if you play against somebody that's, an easy matchup for you, and you're like, oh yeah, I can, like my matchup for this character is 8-2. I can win this easily, and you get, like, bodied. So I definitely, like, struggled with that before, and I definitely see people just, like, put super high stakes on, casual normal matches that aren't tournaments or EVO.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that can be a problem for growth too, because a big issue can be playing to win and playing to improve look very different. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what will make you win in the moment is bad for long-term growth. So you have to, like, recognize when a match isn't important, and use that as the situations to basically, like, focus more on improving rather than winning. Again, assuming your goal is improvement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I think there's a lot of, like, I mean, a thing that I end up doing a lot is when I'm playing, like, casually, like, semi-casually, I guess. Like, I don't throw matches or anything. But a lot of what I end up doing is like I will try various like new strategies. I will try and do experimental things, and not things that I know are bad, but be a little more daring, I guess, with my approach.
Yeah.
For the first like 75% of my life bar, and then when it's down to the last 25, it's like, okay, just shit I know that works.
I know so many people who play like that.
I don't know that it's a great approach, but it works for me so far, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the thing when you're playing a match and you do, a random wake up super, which is unsafe, but it hits, and it's like, well, I won the match, so obviously it works. But now that person will definitely be aware of every single wake up you do, and if your takeaway was, well, wake up supers work, it's gonna be a long term problem. Like, we had somebody in our community that you could basically just like call it on a dime, like okay, here's the wake up super, and it just happens, and it got to like really obnoxious levels that it never worked for them, and eventually they kind of kicked the habit much better. I feel like wake up super are still going to work. That's a big brain play, but relying on them doesn't really teach you how to play the game properly. Like people are only gonna get tricked by that once.
And I think that's also a big problem that, especially I think noticed some games encourage more than others, like Tekken 7 with the rage arts has a problem with this that we've observed, where people will will just drill into that habit of just like hitting the rage art pretty much immediately after they get it, and it's a very hard habit to break once you've made it. I don't play Tekken all that often, but I play it sometimes, and like random rage arts haven't worked for, the last 20 hours of my play, if not 50, and still my hands just do it without asking me.
It's just so easy and it's big damage.
Yeah,
why wouldn't you?
Of course. Listen, sometimes you gotta put all your money on, Red 13.
I am still not great at bursting in Guilty Gear. And it's funny because, like, back in the day, it's like, oh, you burst. Like, you just get out of everything. It's great. And then now playing, it's like, I'm like, did people get punished this often for bursts always? Like, damn, like, realizing. And then, like, I'm doing it too, so it's not like, oh, why is everyone else... When did everybody else get so good at punishing bursts? Like, most of it's actually me now punishing people, and that should be a hint to me. Yeah, when they burst right away when they get burst back, you do that. So why aren't you expecting someone else to punish you for it? So
yeah, it was really wild switching between BlazBlue and Guilty Gear, where in BlazBlue I think the burst is infinitely safer, and then like Guilty Gear is just like, no, if you're not doing it properly, you're just gonna get bodied because of it.
Yeah, there's certain people I play against where the joke is like, if I burst and I don't get punished for it, it's an accomplishment. It's like one of those things like, all right, that's character growth.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing we also touched upon before, kind of like want to go back to, is kind of like assuming like the intent of the person you're playing online, because you don't have like the person sitting next to you like in real life. And I found that usually like my strategies when I I played Hakumen, back in the BlazBlue days, and I really focused on parries, and same with They're Alive. And when you parry somebody in real life, like they're next to you, you're not parrying the actual person, but I mean, you're on the couch, and usually the reaction is kind of like, oh yeah, nice job nailing that. Like people are usually impressed. But online, I have gotten so much rage mail playing parry strategy. It's ridiculous. Like, I've had it to the point where somebody would play against me, then they would pick like Hakumen as a mirror match, and then just spam parries because I guess they assumed that's what I was doing. And then when they'd lose again, they just send like a rage message.
That's always the best when people assume like, oh, what you're doing is easy. It's like,
but I think the fact that you can't communicate with people, like there's no
yes,
there's no text chat, there's no voice chat, there's no physical presence. It's just so easy to assume like, oh yeah, he probably thinks I'm super predictable and a newbie because he parried me like 3 times in a row. Like, I'm sure he's gloating now. Meanwhile, I'm just just playing the game and trying to enjoy myself.
Or like, I mean, there's stuff where like the one of the lessons of being good at fighting games, one of the early lessons is do whatever your opponent hates, right? And
Yes.
in person, like when I'm playing Broly and Dragon Ball Fighters and I go for like my command throw on wake up 4 times in a row, it's because I think it'll work, right? But online it's very easy for that to come across like I'm trolling. And that's one of the things that like without that communication, like on the other side, I mean, first of all, keep in mind that that's how you may come across to others, and also that's what you may be reading, right? If a person overheads you 5 times, they may not be griefing you. They may be like, oh, it seems like overheads work. And so that can really get you heated if you get worked up over something, because with that lack of communication, you can't tell the intent.
Yeah, definitely when I'm playing, like, I go for a lot of mix-ups in fighting games, and I'm kind of used to trying to figure out patterns that people take, like, oh, are they going to block low or high? And I can kind of, like, because there's always, like, an internal logic people are using of whether they should, like, block or high or low. Like, it's very rarely on reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So, I get those opportunities where you overhit somebody 3 times in a row, and people just get really upset online about that. Or just, throw the match and stop recovering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's like, I think it's more than just like winning and losing. It's a case of learning to like distance yourselves from like the moments of the match as well.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I so we also mentioned that like playing to learn the game versus like playing to win, and I think like if you're not like a lot of people when they're playing on a higher level than their opponent, they sometimes use those matches to train combos or like learn strategies or just like experiment with the matchup rather than just brutalize the opponent. But like, do you guys ever do like the opposite, like where you're basically like, okay, this person is outclassing me severely, but now I'm gonna try and figure out what is the counter to this specific move.
Oh yeah. There's no other way around it.
Mm-hmm.
When you're getting beat up by the same person for like the 20th time, it's like, all right, clearly my strategy isn't working. So it's like, just got to start swinging and just seeing what sticks and try and recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think if you set yourself like some goals as, okay, I can't like beat this person, but if I can figure out at least to beat this thing, how to counter it or how to get around it, then I'll feel accomplished. Rather than saying immediately the bar of, oh no, I have to defeat this person, or oh, this is pointless because I'll just lose, so why bother?
Yeah, it's about once you've realized you almost certainly can't get the big victory, you can't achieve your grand goal, setting smaller goals for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's again a life lesson that can be applied to fighting games. Like if you set yourself smaller goals that are within reach and that you can accomplish, it generally feels much better. And I think the issue is like our system work games have tried to do that, I think, but in general fighting games don't really reward anything other than winning, right? Like at the end of the day, you finish a match and you either win or lose. But if you play a team shooter, it's like who had the most assists, who had the most healing, who had the most DPS. So even if you lose, you kind of like get some satisfaction of, okay, well, at least I was doing proper damage, or at least like I managed to keep my team alive better than the other healer or something like that. But fighting games really don't have that. Like I've known Guilty Gear tries to give those medals, but they just kind of like just fly by you, so you don't even like pay attention to them. Although it seems in Strive they're trying to improve that by giving people titles and like telling them what they did well. Like some of the comments were like, "Oh, you were really good at reading your opponent," or like, "Oh, you're really good at fundamentals." Those kind of things.
Yeah, but also those things. I mean, it's one of those things they'll work on refining, I'm sure. But at least in Strive, they can also kind of feel hollow. As a Mei player, I got a lot of games where it was like, "Oh, you're psychic because I put hit stand heavy a lot." It's like, no, I just like big buttons. I'm not smart.
Yeah, and I think that's also like the issue of there's far less like numerical or like statistical stuff to just draw from in fighting games. So at the end of the day, you're not really gonna pay attention to much else other than did my rank go up or down, or did I win or lose?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like so the final, at least to me, what feels like the final level of this is okay. So let's say you've mastered these things, right? You're like, okay,
Mhm.
I now know like how to not blame other people for my losses, how to take them properly, how to not overinvest in like stakes that I've invented, maybe get the right level of salt out of things where like when a match, you can take something out of a match, take some motivation away. You're not getting caught up in like the online play and misassuming intent. For me, it feels like the last thing is like there are people out there who are just dickheads, right? There are people who are bad winners. They will be shitty about it. They are like, or like they'll try and put you down. They'll try and mock you, or they're just like people who are so excited about their own win that even if they're not trying to, they turn into shitheads. And I feel like there's a final layer of like learning to deal with people who are just like, oh my god, I'm so godlike.
How I usually deal with those people is I pick the grappler.
Yeah, but what if they beat your grappler, Mio?
Well, then I don't know. That's why we're having this podcast. No joke. I did have someone when I was playing, like this was in person too. Like I was playing versus a colleague, Guilty Gear Xrd, and at that point I was pretty confident in my Guilty Gear skills. But also he picked Raven, and I wasn't confident in my Raven matchup skills, and he kind of bodied me, and started gloating about it. So I just switched to Potemkin and just kept like Potemkin bustering him and Heavenly Potemkin bustering him. And after 3 matches, he was like, "You know what? This game isn't fun anymore. I'm gonna leave."
Yeah.
But that was my solution. Otherwise, I don't really know how to deal with this other than just, ignore the person, because at the end of the day, it's not really about playing. It's not always about playing against, like, the better person. It's not like, some martial arts movie where you have to, like, fight your way up the ranks. It's, about having a good time. And I feel like I'd rather play with someone, I can learn from or grow from less, but they're a good sportsman about it, than, somebody who's just, like, a piece of shit, but they're also really good.
What I always tell people is there are plenty of great players that you can play who aren't dickheads. So when someone's a jerk, it's like, oh, well, but you should play me to get good and learn. It's like, nah, I got other options. Like, nobody is so uniquely valuable at this point for me to, like, tolerate them being a jerk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's this is one where there's no like quick solution to it. It's something I still work on, right? It's just like avoid those people and have patience. There's no fun trick, it's just like, some people are shitty, deal with it.
Yeah, you can't always avoid them, unfortunately. No. But I do my best.
For what it's worth, I have seen in like European lobbies in some games where certain people had such a toxic reputation for being like bad winners that people just stopped playing them like entirely. Mm-hmm. Like, and then that's like for anime fighters who are struggling to find players. So like Kayin said, you're not unique. It's kind of like it's almost like anything like online with like content creators and stuff. You don't have to watch somebody you don't like as a person. You can just go to somebody else. There's a ton of people. Mm-hmm. Especially now with Discord communities, like that's been a pretty powerful thing lately. So you can, find people to play with almost any game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just at least know when to walk away.
Yeah. So I guess for like we mentioned this a few times through the podcast, but I guess for some like closing thoughts, how what do you think was like the most valuable for us personally, like in growing and just like taking these lessons like to heart, and what we'd probably like say to people like, yeah, this is like, this worked for me, like worked for you?
I think the most important thing is trying to stick with it until you eventually can just like deal with losing until you win and you realize like, oh hey, wait, I actually got better. Because I think once you like have that cycle of like losing, hitting a plateau, getting frustrated, and then overcoming it, once you do that like twice, you realize you can keep doing it, and that it's just a matter of time and effort. Mm-hmm. The first few times, I think for a lot of people, it's just like, it can be super frustrating, and can make those losses like hurt even more because they just feel insurmountable.
Yeah.
It's like once you know that you can get better, you can just look at your losses like, all right, it's just a matter of work and time.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, the thing that had the biggest impact, and like the few people I've gotten into fighting games, the thing that I guess I've tried to teach them, because most of the people I've gotten into fighting games are not going to go on to be like hardcore fighting game players. They're just people who play casually now and then, is learning to see the fun, like sort of like getting a larger perspective and like appreciating when cool shit happens or when something is funny, even if you're not the perpetrator. That's been really important to me, is like when I see a really sick mix that's done to me, I can still be like, damn, that was a sick mix. You know, that has been really essential.
Yeah. I think on my end, it's kind of communication feels to be like the key thing, and understanding when it's happening, when it's not. So for example, like, the inferring intent online and like assuming the worst, and just kind of like put a lid in that. There's just like, nope, I'm not gonna, assume anything. I'm just gonna assume they're having fun unless I'm like told otherwise.
Yeah.
And kind of like also like when I play, if I'm playing with people I know and I'm either not enjoying myself or struggling, just communicating that. So for example, I jumped into them's fighting herds a few weeks ago for the first time after like God knows how long, and people just like completely bothered me, and I didn't really have time to figure anything out because it was something like winner stays, so I immediately get booted out of a single match. So I just communicated like, hey folks, I'm not like understanding what's going on. Can we maybe like do a free for all? Can I get like a few matches in a row just to get my bearings and everything? And people were perfectly fine with that. And after I did a few of those, it just worked out better, and everybody had a good time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's probably the most essential like thing to keep in mind, is if you're playing with like friends or just like associates, right? People who maybe it's generous to use the word friends, but you're friendly with, like, you can ask for stuff. It'll be fine, right? People are there. Everyone's there to have a good time, and people aren't going to be like, no, you got to wait your turn to get overheaded once into a one-touch combo again. The people are going to be like, oh, okay, we want to change things up. That's fine. So.
Oh yeah, definitely in our gear community, when we recognize someone's new, because like people are so bad at asking, we're like, wait, you're new? Like you're just joining like on a random lobby night? I'll like call people over, like, yo, you two get on a machine and just like, keep trading off and letting them stay on and play.
Mm-hmm.
Like just like trying to pair people with like people of similar skill and just let them get like, time and reps and just make them comfortable. Yeah, I guess leading into what everyone else just said, it's like just recognizing your opponent's another human being with the same fears and insecurities that you have is it's pretty good. Realizing like they're probably not the stone-faced, iron-willed player that they're insecure about their rank points to and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think it's also like a lot of just, a lot of the pressure is also just imposed with how games are designed or communicated, or what you read online with people saying, especially when you're like exposed to so many good players now very easily. Before you had to look, pixelated compressed footage from Japan from a camcorder to like see tournament footage. Now you can just see good players immediately in high quality. And that can also get overwhelming and just make you feel like, oh, I'm actually really bad and I'm wasting people's time and I'll never be this good. But it's also like none of those things matter, really. Like, people just want to play and have fun.
Also, a special message for anyone who plays Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. Sometimes a game's ranked system is just stupid and dog shit, and you shouldn't invest yourself in it.
It's true.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, I think that's all we have for today. So, Kayin, is there anything you'd like to plug or mention? Where can people find you, follow you, buy your games?
I don't know. Should anybody follow me on Twitter? That seems like a mistake.
Only at like 4 a.m. my time. That's when like the good game design combos happen.
Oh yeah, when I start just losing my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Kayin Nasaki, KayinnNasaki. Same name, also on Twitch. I stream every Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday. Mostly Guilty Gear. We do some Fightcade stuff on Mondays. Mostly Super Turbo, but sometimes other stuff. So if you're interested, if you're in North America and are interested in getting into Guilty Gear Rev 2, even though Strive is coming out, I would recommend hopping by.
And if they had rollback, maybe I can drop by.
Oh
Europe.
man, that's incredible. I'm not like that excited for Strive as a game, but the fact that like the rollback is that good, just the ability to like place that, like being able to play certain people that just seemed impossible is a reality. That just seems wild. I'm really excited for that.
Same. And Six, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at SixDetmar, SIXDETTMAR. It's not that special. Mostly you should go to scanlinemedia.com or patreon.com/scanlinemedia for all my podcasts and writing and the too much shit that I do.
Yeah, I think your Twitter is cool.
Well, thank you. That's mostly because I don't tweet very much. That
And
keeps it
that's
good.
a secret. That's a secret. Positive win rate on tweets. Anyway, folks can find me on twitter.com/mdkii. That's MDK Roman numerals 2. And I also stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/RealSovietBear. Sometimes fighting games, sometimes bad PS1 games. I don't even know what my gimmick is these days, but yeah, you can find me there. So, Kayin, thanks again for joining in for this episode. It was really fun having insight from someone who's also trying to help like new people get into fighting games. I think like we need in general more efforts and content like that online. And I hope to see you again soon. And for everybody else, have a nice night. Goodbye, folks.
Peace.
Goodbye.